Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Let's get started with a prayer.
Yes, we should.
Father, thank you for the opportunity we have this morning to just talk about ways to increase workers for your kingdom. Father, we know the harvest is great and the workers are few. And Father, we ask that you help us to see ways to increase the workers, Father, and help us to do our part in bringing people to meet your Son and to be able to make their decision to follow him. Father, we ask you to be with us this morning. Father, help us to learn and to ask questions and just, Father, learn ways that we can help your kingdom. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So I talked a bit this morning, a little bit about the New England Bible Institute, what the school is, how I got started with it, some of those early meetings. Like I said, we wanted to find ways to get the school back in New England. Difference between the New England Bible Institute and what I went through with Sunset is the New England Bible Institute is its own school. We are not Sunset New England, though we have chosen, well, here, let me just, there we go. Actually, I got to remember to point it back there. It's a 2-year full-time Bible training program done video conferencing in partnership with the Sunset International Bible Institute in Lubbock, Texas. Our classroom is currently located at the South Road Church in Farmington, Connecticut. The difference is we're in partnership with Sunset right now. So our students do the same kind of program that I did in the video conferencing technology with Sunset, but we're not Sunset in New England. Our goal is to eventually be our own Bible school in New England with New England preachers being the teachers. So eventually we are looking to be big enough, have enough support and everything else to go for our own 501c3, have a permanent place of our own, and maybe I might teach a class on Monday, Wednesday, maybe get Danny to teach a class on Tuesday, Thursday. Maybe he'll teach the morning class via Zoom into the school. Maybe he'll, wherever the school is located, maybe he'll drive down. Who knows? Maybe, one of the other board members will teach a class, whatever it is. But it'll be located in New England, being taught by people in New England. We're not there yet, okay? Why is it important? You're not moving? Hello? No. No, it was missing a slide. All right. There's 14,900,000 people in New England. There are approximately 5,000 members of the Lord's Church in New England. About 70 congregations in New England. Why is the school important? Those numbers seem a little, a little skewed. Okay. Of the 70 congregations, about 18% have no full-time preacher. So there's minus the 5,000 currently saved, there's about 901,000 people that need to be reached. Is that a few people to reach with 70 congregations? So if it needs to grow, we need preachers and evangelists aren't raised up in New England. The present churches need to reach 216,000 people each with the gospel. 216,000 people. That's your job here in Manchester. How many people are in Merrimack? You're in Merrimack County, right? Huh? Hillsborough. Okay. I'm sorry. We were in Merrimack County and Concord. How many people are in Hillsborough County?
About 450,000.
Huh?
About 450,000.
Okay. So you got to reach half of Hillsborough County. that a little bit of a challenge?
My sister said it's a target-rich environment.
It's a target. Yeah, it is a target-rich environment. Okay? So this is why the school's important. What our goal is there'll be preachers and teachers and evangelists to fill the vacant pulpits. There'll be preachers and teachers and evangelists to plant churches. That's what our goal is, because there's a huge gap. I mean, you just look here in New Hampshire. You're here. You've got Concord. You've got Tilton, Lakes Region, and then when you get north of that, just follow up 93. What's north of Lakes Region? Yeah, and what's the different distance between Lakes Region and Lancaster? 120 miles. Easy, right? I mean, it's a ways up to Lancaster. All right, I've been there once. That's a ride. All right, in between there, you got some space. Right, Lincoln's in between there. Right, that's exit 35, I think, is Lincoln. Right, you got some space in between there. But if you live in between there, what's your ride to church? If you're going to go worship, what's your ride to church? Are people going to do that? Are people really going to do that? Let's face it, we're lazy as a whole, as a society. We're not going to drive a couple hours to go to church, to go meet with the saints. Not when we can just turn around. I'm glad that there's a remote here and just go, click. We need, come on, stay on. We need to plant churches, because there's plenty of places where the nearest church is hours away in New England. I can tell you from being in Maine, there are whole parts of Maine where it's a long way to get to a church. So our goal, continued, the ungodly moral compass will begin to change in New England. One of the least churched areas in the country is New England. Right? Did I need to tell you that? This is not a news flash to you, right? All right? Men and women who attend New England Bible Institute will be asked to stay in New England. In other words, like I said earlier, teach the locals to lead the locals. You know, if you're from New England, you understand New England culture. Why? Why do you understand New England culture? You're from here. It is your culture. Okay? I know, I mean, I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I used to live in Peabody. When anybody else from out of the country, because I used to work, I did I did a couple seasons working at Christian Book Distributors. Hi, you're in Peabody, Massachusetts? Yes, I'm in Peabody. You know how to pronounce places like Gloucester and Worcester, and people are like, where are you? Where is that? Gloucester? We know how to pronounce the local places. We know what, I mean, we moved to Connecticut a couple years ago. We've yet to find the good sub shop, pizza place, Chinese food places. We stayed in Concord last night with some friends of ours. We couldn't wait to go to the Chinese food place that was right near us when we lived in Concord. We couldn't wait because we have yet to find a good place, because we're not local to that area. Some people have said, oh, go here, they've got good stuff. We went there, it's like, no, you don't. It might be good to you, but it ain't good to us. We know what we like because, when in the areas that we're from, right? So, that's part of being a local. So that's what we need. And that's the second thing. That's where our support system is. Even when I was up in Caribou, Maine, and my dad had cancer, I could still drive back home. Yeah, it was a 6.5 hour drive, but I could still drive home to see Dad. I didn't have to wait to take a plane, to take a bus. I could still just hop in the car and go. I could even take the bus if I wanted to, and Mom would meet me at the bus station. And go. It was right here in New England. So we are affiliated with Sunset right now, like I said. So our students get the same education like I got through the video technology. We have one young man who is graduating, actually he's finishing up at the end of this year. When we started 2 years ago, we kicked it off, we had no students. But we were starting it and we were gonna start and go. And we had one young man who came to that opening weekend we had in August of 21. And that weekend, he's like, I want to do this. I really want to do this. His wife was away visiting family, and she was 100% behind him. He came to Trumbull that October when I talked to the church where we're at about the school, and he came and he was halfway done with his application process. He started that January. Ricardo is finishing up in December. He'll be done. And his plan right now is to stay local, continue working with the church he's at in Bridgeport. And continue there. He's preaching the last Sunday of every month at home. He continues to go out and preach whenever he has opportunity with other churches. He continues to be a vibrant part of that congregation. And his plans right now are to continue with that congregation and work with them. So, but he's done. We've got another young man, a single young man, Josh, who worships in Warwick. And, you know, he's yeah, Josh is a great kid, but you know he's a young Christian who came from a very. You look at him and you're going, he's a Christian. If you just looked at him, you'd be going. But then you talk with him and you're going, wow, this kid has changed and he's fantastic. And God has done wonders in this kid's life. In his first job, he said, you know what? God has done so much for me. I'm going to go talk to my family. And he went out and started reaching his family.
I think you might need to turn off the mic because we just.
I'm sorry. Wes, turn this down. I told you I don't need a mic. So, yeah, no, we didn't need it. We had a mic there, but I didn't need it. But Josh is so turned around, he went and started talking with his family, and they saw the change in him. And he's excited to be a student. He just started this year, the beginning of the year. And we have Philip, who was a part-time student who just started his last year full-time in August. So we've got a few students now, when a couple of years ago we had none. And it's fantastic to see it. And these guys will end up with their Bachelor's of Religious Studies from Sunset, but they get treated like they sit in the last row, like we did when we were in Fall River. And the instructors in Sunset, you know, they treat them just like they're right there, which is fantastic. So, okay. Oh, I didn't update this. Almost every state in New England is represented by one or more board members. Okay? So almost every state. We're working on it. We used to have every state represented, but a couple board members had to resign. Actually, they moved over to our advisory board. Every board member is working in a New England congregation. And Maurice Davis, he preaches in Abington, Mass. The church moved down to Abington from Milton. But let me introduce our board. Did these not? All right. So that's Maurice Davis, his wife Lynn, their son Sebastian, and they're down in Abington, Massachusetts now, the Bedford Street Church. He's our board president. He does a great job leading the board. He is very good at keeping us on task in our board meetings. He tells us the board meetings will not last more than 90 minutes. Most of our board meetings last no more than an hour. We meet the first Wednesday of every month at 3 o'clock. Now, because I work a secular job, on my break, I call in. So that's Maurice. You might know this guy. I am the treasurer for the board, as well as a recruiter. So I get to travel. I'm the only non-located preacher on the board. And we're down in Trumbull, Connecticut. Kirk Israel and his wife Karen, they're up in Castleton, Vermont. If you've never been there, it's a ride, but it's a beautiful area. Mike Mullen, wife Nancy, they've been in Fall River for 40 years. Yeah, they've been down there for, I was going to say forever. Mike is a former graduate of the Northeast School of Biblical Studies in Clifton Park, New York. Actually, if you've ever been to Ganderbrook, you've probably met Mike. Mike was he's one of the elders down in Fall River as well. And he was the one that ran the school in Fall River when we had it there. And then Tim Tarbett and his wife Renee. Tim preaches down in New Milford, Connecticut. Some of you may know Tim or his dad, David. So that's currently our board. So we've got a few other people that we've been talking to about joining the board. We also have an advisory board. I don't have any of their information. But we have an advisory board made up of several people from other states that meet once every couple months that help us with fundraising, that help us with promoting the school. We set this up at different things, the Inspire Conference, at the New England Lectureship. We try to get it up at the retreats. This will be going up for the ladies' retreat. If you're at the ladies' retreat, you'll see this. If you're at the men's retreat at Ganderbrook, you'll see this. It was at the Kent Men's Retreat. We set up a table at whatever we can. We set this table up to promote the school because we want students. So how can you help? Well, we need prospective students identified. If there are, men that want to preach, if there are women that want to be Bible teachers, I mean, we need workers in the kingdom. And that's what the school does. We want to teach people to work in the kingdom. So we need students. We need churches to get behind the program. Pray for it. That's the biggest thing we need. We need prayer. God knows what we need. So
I will point out, when it comes to something like this, you're not too old. I was in preaching school with a guy who started when he was 60, graduated at 62, and went on to do full-time ministry work. So this isn't just for young people. It's not just for kids. This is for anyone who wants to work in the kingdom.
I turned 40 my first year in full-time ministry. So, I mean, I graduated preaching school at 39. So you're not too old to do this. So.
I was 42.
Huh?
I was 40 also.
So, see?
So I begin the 40.
See, Jerry? You want to go to school? Don't throw that bottle at me. This thing wouldn't stop it. Nuts. We also need funding. We've got $30,000 in the bank. One of our goals is we're currently working on some numbers for scholarships for the students, a budget for a director, and for operating budget. We're working on those numbers. But, having a school takes money. It's an unfortunate evil. But we eventually want to have a full-time director. But, that'll come when we need it. God knows what he needs.
I think one of the important things is to get the students familiar with the congregations in the area. And that way you find out where they need the help, is if they're able to come and preach.
Yep.
If you can't do anything, allow them to be able to do that.
I'm coming to that.
I'm sorry, Marshall.
You shush. And students need support. I mean, when I was a preaching student, we had individuals who supported us. We had a couple different churches who supported us. We had a scholarship. But it took several different ways of getting support in order to be able to be a student. Because I'll tell you, when I first got to school and they said at orientation, we took a 4-year Bible degree and condensed it to 2 years. I had taken some college courses. I'm going, sure. Then I got my first syllabi. Wow. When they say, yeah, if you're going to do this full time, you really can't work, they're not kidding. because you're taking 5 classes plus a preaching lab. Well, now they call it preaching practicum. It's intense. You're taking 5 classes in 9 weeks, and you do that 4 times a year. So it is intense. And over the summer, they want you to intern with the congregation. So the students need help. So to that point, what you were saying, Flo, is we also need places for these students to go and preach. You know, we want these student preachers and teachers to be able to go and practice, be able to go and teach a lesson, teach a Bible class, and know that they'll get some feedback from either the preacher, the elders, from the people in the class, and get some honest feedback from them. And let them go and they even meet the people in the congregation and know that, you know, there's a support system out there in New England that wants them to succeed. Because, you know, I mean, down at Sunset, the little churches down in that part of Texas, they've had Sunset students preaching them for 50 plus years. Up here, besides our home congregation and one other congregation that helped support us, that was all the practice preaching I got. We want our students to go out all over New England, because there are churches that that don't have preachers. Like I told you, that 18% of our congregations don't have a full-time preacher. Some that's by design. Some that's because they can't afford somebody. They don't have the ability, or they've been looking, but they're not finding anybody. Because, you know, you go to preaching school down south and you got a 200-member congregation, we're gonna pay you X thousands of dollars a year with all of these extras, and you wanna come back to New England, and it's like, well, we have to help find you support. And how expensive is it to live in New England? Which one do I want to do? I remember one of the guys I went to preaching school with, he grew up in Antrim. He was converted in Antrim. They sent him down to preaching school, and he said, I'm coming back. He got offered 2 jobs in Florida, plenty of money, parsonage, you know, with his first, and he had 9 kids. He went back to Antrim and made pizzas until we lost him to brain cancer in 2010. He lived above in an apartment above the pizza place. Okay? Because he made a promise that he was coming back here, when he could have gone anywhere else he wanted and had a full-time salary, a place to live and everything else, and not have to go make pizzas to support him and his family. So, but we need to keep training the locals. So, questions? I saw a hand. I'm sorry.
Southern Vermont hasn't had a minister over there in years, and then they've had so many, I can't even remember counting the names.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy, but there's a lot of ministers who don't want to work outside, you know what I mean, just be a part-time minister and have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Because like over there, they have nothing. They sold the house years ago, and there's nothing to offer, there's no housing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard.
It's very hard.
Yep.
Does the school help to get a minister? Like to start preaching somewhere in a town, or does the school do anything like that? Because you just can't move somewhere and stand on the sidewalk and start preaching, I guess. Or,
No, we just started, and we're still trying to get off the ground ourselves.
Yeah.
We're trying to find the guys assistance with raising money to come to school. So we've actually got our first guy getting ready to graduate. So.
Jay, it's a nice presentation. You talk about raising money. There's nothing on here to show us how we can help.
Yeah. So there's, I've got some stuff on, you know, where the funds, like, right now we're still putting together the budgets on how much, because nobody likes to give to a black hole, a nebulous fund that says, just give us money, okay? I mean, I have forms for, I mean, if someone wants to donate to the school, the check is made out to the South Road congregation and just put NEBI in the memo. And I have a form that shows that, and I can give that to you. But what we're trying to do is we wanna be as responsible as we can and as, transparent as we can with everything that's given to us. Because we think that's what we need to do, you know, it's the right thing to do. We're working together to put together a budget. So we say we're trying to raise X amount for student scholarships, because we wanna be able to give students X amount a month for the time they're here. We're trying to raise X amount of money so we can have a director. So we can pay our director X amount and an operating a budget of this. So when someone says, what are you guys looking to raise? We can say, we're looking to raise this amount and here's where the money's going. So right now, we just have a general fund and we have about $31,000 in it. I don't have the exact number right now.
No, it's just, you know, we need to.
Yep.
Have, you know, so that you can continue, set it up, okay, you got 31,000, you know.
Right.
Gathering money now, have $100,000, okay?
Right.
And then you can go back to the people who have donated and say, okay, here's where your money's going, this is what's happening, and stuff
Right.
like that. But to wait to do it, you're falling behind, you're not gonna advance, okay? I'm a salesman, as you can tell, I mean, I'm just offering advice
Yep.
as to what you need, what the institute needs to do
Yep.
to get it, you know, it's sort of like raising money for the dorm for Vanderbrook, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know,
And that's one of the things that I'm working on is a list of all our donors. And so that way, you know, I can say, okay, send out a thank you letter because we're not a 501c3, so all the money goes to the church. So I can send out a thank you letter anyway, even though, you know, it's not, ours isn't a tax, you know, letter, but we can still say thank you. And let people know, you know, you sent us money, here's what we're doing with it at the end of the year. And so this is something that we're working on right now.
yeah, some of the things where you could have, you know, automatic payments, you know, so
Yep.
much a month come in every month.
Right. One of our board members does that, and it goes right to the South Road congregation. I'm actually, next Saturday, I will be put on the checking account for the school funds. So, I'm the treasurer, but not quite the treasurer yet. Still working on that.
Who's your director?
Huh?
Who's your director?
So. How'd you find the website? There are a couple of things in the back. I left them out in the foyer. For prospective students, 5 reasons you should attend the New England Bible Institute, and then just a general flyer about the school. I did not say this. Okay, now the general flyer. Still has a couple of our former board members on it, but that's all right. Needs to be updated. I know everybody asks me once.
Could you speak to what students are supposed to do? Like, are they on a campus? Are they living there? Do they drive and travel there? Because if they're there 5 days a week for school and being busy, it's helpful to know what that looks like.
So we've designed it so that the students would be there 5 days a week at the campus. However, right now, because we have students who are at different levels, so it doesn't make sense to say, okay, you all come here and be at class, because there's a classroom right now. Well, we have one guy who's in his last couple of terms. We have one guy who's in his first few terms. One guy that's been there part-time and is just coming in to finish a few classes, you know. So they're all in different spots in their 2 years. So what classes do you put on the video? So, and, you know, having started this kind of in, I'll say the tail end of COVID, right now they're all at home doing their classes. Because we also had the preacher in Farmington was also going through, he was our acting director, he was going through cancer treatment. So kind of saying, okay guys, go and show up there when you've got someone who's immunocompromised, was kind of a hindrance. So they were at home doing classes and basically zooming into their individual classes, which is something that we as a board want to kind of say, all right, we need to get away from them being at home and have them at the school. Because that's our goal, that's why we have the school at a location, because we want them together, because that's why we started the school as a school, because we want the students together, because one of the things that was beneficial to those of us who went through school together, like in Fall River, is we did chapel together, we studied together. And so, like, I graduated with Jonathan Sharp. Right? Some of you know Jonathan, some of you don't. And Jonathan and I mean, that's my brother from another mother. I mean, we're still close. He's down in Charlotte, North Carolina. But if Jonathan calls me up and said, hey, listen, I got a situation going, what do you need from me? You know, his kids are my niece and nephew. I mean, we're close. We spent 2 years here, but we spent 2 years together sweating. I mean, there were some exams that we studied together through that we're going, are we gonna pass this exam? You know, especially Old Testament history, okay? When we had to write out maps and stuff like that. I mean, we sweat through some of these things together. And that's what we wanna foster, because you foster those relationships going through school together. Because you're going through and you're studying together and you're spending all that time together. And right now, these guys are just sitting there and they could almost be doing online classes. You know, and they're and it's great because a couple of them have developed a relationship, because there was a time when a couple of the guys had some similar classes, so they did go together and meet on, I think it was Monday, Wednesday, they had the same class. So they met together those 2 days at the church. But still, it's like, okay, well, we want them all together in one place. That's our goal. So as we recruit new students, our goal is to get them to start at the same time, so that we can have them in that one place together. So that's our goal. We're not there right now because of, like I said, they're all in different places. So it's difficult. Alex?
We do have an online request that you leave some forms for donations and things behind for those who aren't here now, that they can get that information.
I was just curious, so the Sunset International Bible Institute, where the video is coming from, there's actually students there that are actually paying for the classes?
So Sunset doesn't have a tuition per se.
Okay.
You have, you're buying your books
Okay.
and things
So
like
it's
that.
similar.
Huh?
Similar to what you're doing, they're doing down there.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. Yeah. Yeah, and the one, I'm gonna tell you from my experience with going through these same classes that these guys are doing. The experience that they get in the classroom at Lubbock is the same experience we get. We're just not right there sitting at the table in Lubbock, which is great because we don't get the heat. And they cry snow with 2 inches, and we go, babies, and we laugh at them. But they put their lessons up. They do their PowerPoints. They get them on Blackboard. I used to waffle between when Ed Wharton retired from the day school. I waffled for a short period of time. Oh, good for them or bad for them, and I feel bad for them now because Ed Wharton used. I don't know how many of you know who Ed Wharton is. He was a longtime instructor at Sunset. He was the last original instructor to retire, but Ed used to get up on a blackboard and he put a cross in the middle, write glory on that side, write glory on that side, and he would proceed to write the passages as he's quoting them and fill the blackboard in. His Bible's closed on the lectern. He quoted from the American Standard, if he thought the NIV, the New American, the ESV, the Revised, pick a version. If he thought they had a better wording for a passage, he'd quote that. Okay? So, but he would proceed to fill it in as he went. And just watching Ed work, his hands were all over the place. But he was a fantastic instructor. He was a tough instructor too. So that's why I said I kind of feel sorry for him, because you got some great lessons from Ed. But we would watch Ed work on the screen. But if we had a question, we just hit our mic, ask the question. And he treated us like we were just sitting right there. And sometimes he would go, "Do you guys have a question?" and point up at the monitor. Which I always thought, until I went down for my last week of class, was just this little monitor right by the camera. No, it was this nice big TV right in between the two doors in the classroom. So they really do treat the students that are on the video just like they're sitting right there. So it was great, because Flo and I went down for the last week of school, and we sat in the classroom. And the teachers had, they knew exactly who I was. They treated Flo like, "Oh, hey, Jay's like great," and they treated her great because she wasn't in class with me. And we had one of my classmates said, "Hey, I'll come pick you up at the airport." And if you've never been to Lubbock, it's a little airport. It makes Manchester look big. Okay? So we're sitting there, and there's 7 guys come walking towards us, and she's looking at me going, "There's a bunch of guys coming over here." So I look over and I start naming them. He said, "Okay, do you know who they all are?" I said, "Yeah, if they turn around, I can name them even better." Because I looked at the back of their heads for 2 years. Okay? And she says to me, she says, "That's not funny." Well, they're close enough that they could hear all of this. And they said, "Oh, yes, it is," because she's looked at the back of her head for 2 years. Okay? But you build that camaraderie with the guys in class. Because just while they were on their summer break, there was a men's breakfast in Warwick, Rhode Island, and there were a couple of students who had come up and did their internships in New England. And one of them was still here, and he came to the men's breakfast with Maurice. He was interning in Abington. And so he was there with Josh and Philip, and they had been in some classes together. And they would just greet each other like, "I haven't seen you in person, but I know you." Which is why I said the church is such a great thing, because you've got family all over the country. Because it doesn't matter. I may only see your face on screen, but I know who you are because they've talked and they've communicated over email and stuff like this. So now he actually gets to see them, and they get to see him. And it was great seeing that with these guys. And it was the same as when we got to see some of the guys that I went to school with. Because we even had one couple and their daughter stayed with us because he came up for a weekend. So, it's a wonderful thing, and that's what we're trying to do here, is get this going.
We're also trying to help out with the wives of these people
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
So that they don't feel left behind.
Right.
Like,
So the latest thing that we just, and this is still in progress, is that some of our wives, Flo, most of the wives, Maurice's wife Lynn, Nancy Mullen, Renee Tarbett, Karen Israel, and Ron Saracino. Ron, the preacher in trouble, was on our advisory board. His wife, a lot of our wives did not go through preaching school with us. And they, all of a sudden, their husband's a preacher. And they kind of get tossed into that role as a preacher's wife. What do? They didn't go through any of these classes with us. They didn't have that. And so they're saying, they decided that, what we're going to do something about this to help the students' wives. Because, like 2 of our students are married. Their wives aren't in classes. And so what they're in the process of doing is setting up a program start out with a few classes that, we can do some things for the wives. That, you know, they wanna learn, they wanna find out what they're getting into, what can we do to help them? So when they get out there and get into ministry, they're not blindsided. They're not left with, you know, what do I do? So we're working on that as well. That's something that, I think next month, you guys come up with your final 6, I think.
We come up with the final, curriculum, and then it goes live according to Marie's, the end of October, beginning of November.
So just try to help the wives out as well, so they're not left out there.
It's not just for the wives, it's for women who wanna take the lessons to better themselves too.
So. Any other questions? No?
I'm glad this is happening.
It's been a long time.
You've done good.
I mean, we've all done good.